What up, folks? Today we're going to talk about the Fender Mustang. We're going to talk about the state of the Mustang within Fender's lineup. What has Fender been doing with the Mustang in the last, few years? A little bit of the history behind the Fender Mustang and where did it come from and where do we think it's going and what do I wish that Fender would do? Now, I'm no product specialist or anything, but I have been a big fan of Fender and their guitars. And just because I'm a fan doesn't mean that I think they always do everything right. There are times when they do things that don't make any sense to us as consumers or as fans of the brand. And sometimes I wish they would do stuff that's both more vintage accurate and more correct for, the modern player. So let's take a look in this video. The history of the Mustang starts really before the history of the Mustang, and let me explain. So the Mustang was introduced as a student model, but before the Mustang came around, there were actually two student models in Fender's lineup. Fender starts their lineup with the Telecaster and the Squier, and the Squier just had a bridge pickup, and then it had some cool tone switching stuff with that three-way blade. So it still had the same look as the Telecaster, just minus the chrome-covered neck pickup, which is not a lipstick pickup. Lipstick pickups actually enclose the entire pickup in a tube and the wires wrapped in a different way. It's a different type of pickup, but the Telecaster neck pickup is its own thing. It's just a single coil with a chrome cover, kind of like the chrome covers we put on humbuckers. Anyway, those guitars were introduced in 1950, and then in 1954, Fender introduces the Stratocaster, a very streamlined-looking guitar that has three pickups and a vibrato system, although Fender calls it tremolo, and they still call it that, and they call tremolo vibrato. I'm going to say vibrato because I think that it's time to correct this language. We've been using it wrong for a long time. Why not start now? Let's try to update it to the musically correct term. It's confusing and outdated the way that Fender was using it. Let's use the correct terminology, which is tremolo is a modulation of the volume and vibrato is a modulation of the pitch. In 1955, there were people who contacted Fender sales and they said, "Hey, we love the Strat, we love the Stratocaster, we love the Telecaster, we love the Squier, we love the P-Bass, but do you think you could make something cheaper, maybe with a shorter scale length, something smaller for the students? Because they love the Fender guitar, but they it's hard for them to afford it, and it might be too big for some people. And if you don't know, most Fenders, aside from the Jaguar and the Mustang, and as I'll talk about it, the Duosonic and the Musicmaster, all of them have the long 25.5-inch scale length, like a lot of larger Martin guitars, whereas Gibsons tend to have the 24 3/4-inch scale length, like the Gibson acoustic guitars and the smaller-bodied Martin guitars. Leo and the fine folks at Fender started to work on a design in 1955 and to meet that desire from Fender sales for a cheaper, smaller guitar, and it was released and begun to be sold in early 1956. Did I say 65? I meant to say 55 there. So they started designing it in 55 and released it in 56. The student lineup included two models that shared a bunch of common specs. And so these models were the Musicmaster and the Duosonic. And as the Duosonic name implies, there were two pickups in the Duosonic. The Musicmaster just had one slanted pickup, it's a little bit south of the neck position, but not quite in a full neck or full bridge position. It was kind of more towards the neck, but not all the way there. The Duosonic had a slanted bridge pickup and slanted neck pickup and a straight bridge pickup, and it had a three-way toggle switch on the lower bout. These guitars kind of looked like a just shrunken Strat without the arm contour and the belly cut, and they had kind of nice rounded edges, less like the Tele, more like the Strat. They just kind of look like a shrunken Strat. So the body was smaller as well as thinner as well. The other common features were they both had single coil pickups with no visible pole pieces. The plastic covers covered the pole pieces. This is interesting because this theme remained the same all the way through to the Mustang and the Bullet series as well, or the Bronco series. There was also some Bronco guitars, but a lot of Fender student models used to have the pole pieces covered. They had a 3-saddle hardtail bridge that strung, it was non-stringed through the body. It was top loading. They had a small non-offset body at first, and we'll talk about when it goes to an offset body. They had volume and tone controls on a gold anodized aluminum pickguard. a 22.5-inch scale length. So the first years they were short scale, very short scale, way shorter than the Mustang. And they had single-piece maple neck and fingerboard, and fretboard, just like the other Fenders at the time. Chrome bridge cover, the removable one, and then chrome flat-top Telecaster-style knobs. In 1959, Fender starts to update stuff, and they switch to a plastic pickguard on the Duosonic and the Musicmaster, and then they switch the neck from being one piece to being two piece, and that second piece is the rosewood fretboard, of course. And then in 1964, the Mustang is introduced, and the Duosonic and the Musicmaster take a bunch of features and aesthetics from the Mustang. They switch to an offset Mustang body, so they all use the same body blanks, and then they just routed them with different things. And they use the same neck as well. All three of the student models were offered with 24 or 22.5-inch scale length, which is kind of interesting, although 24 was more popular. So the shorter scale guitars you'll see commonly are the older ones, and the newer ones are usually longer scale. They switched to a rosewood veneer fingerboard, so it's that curved fretboard design instead of the slab one. So they would radius the neck, and then they would put a curved piece of rosewood on top. The controls were moved to a separate chrome plate, just like the Jaguar and the Bass 6, and the Jazz Bass as well. The Duosonic got Mustang-style three-way slider switches to toggle on and off each pickup and put them out of phase. The Mustang was really designed to be the deluxe student model and sit atop of the student range. It was kind of like the Squier Classic Vibe of the day, right? Nowadays we have Squier Classic Vibe. It's like kind of top of the Squier range. Back then these guitars were the Squiers of Fender's lineup. So the Mustang was going to sit on top. Now remember, I said both of the Duosonic and the Musicmaster were both hardtail. Well, the Mustang adds a vibrato system. Leo Fender calls it tremolo. This was the last new vibrato system that Fender would introduce during their pre-CBS era. And in fact, this was the last pre-CBS designed guitar that Leo Fender would have a part in while he was at Fender. So it was the last Leo Fender, really. Because he sold Fender to CBS in 1965, the year after the Mustang was introduced. So it had a new offset waist body that would ape the Jazzmaster and the Jaguar, which were the kind of cream of the crop Fenders at the time. So it was the tier of price was Jaguar, Jazzmaster, Stratocaster, Telecaster, Squier, Mustang, Duosonic, and then Musicmaster at the bottom. It used a new vibrato system, but it used the same type of bridge as the Jazzmaster and the Jaguar, where it could rock and was height adjustable. You could adjust either side of the bridge, the height. But instead of giving you individual saddle height adjustments, they just gave you these big round steel saddles that only had one groove. So you couldn't adjust the string spacing on each individual string. But this turned out to be a really good feature, not a downside, because the strings, as guitarists started using lighter gauge strings, the strings stay in the grooves in the Mustang saddles way better than they do in the Jazzmaster and Jaguar saddles if you don't shim the neck and you use light gauge strings and pick hard. This vibrato system was very direct, and you could have a big range of pitch up or down, so it's very fun. I love playing them, and I really got to get another Mustang in my collection again because I loved playing that guitar. It was so much fun. The unique thing here was the slider switches to turn on and off the pickups, but instead of the two-way switches that were found on the Jaguar, on the Mustang they were three-way, so you could actually turn the pickup. It went from on, off, and then on, but with the phase reversed. So that way you could put the guitar out of phase. You could put the bridge and the neck pickup out of phase with each other, or in phase with each other. And this was really fun to create some really honky, weird sounds. And for that reason, without modification, the Mustang can make sounds that no other Fender guitar can make, which is pretty darn cool, I think. There was a Mustang bass that came out in 1966 that featured a split coil, just one single split coil pickup. And that has become a legendary bass for many players like Justin Mendel Johnson from Beck's band. There was also the competition cosmetic that is popular right now. The Ventera 2 Mustangs have the competition color scheme with the racing stripes, and there's a limited edition Classic Vibe Mustang that also has this as well. But in 1982, sadly, the Mustang ended production along with the rest of the student line, the Musicmaster and the Duosonic, and these were succeeded by the Bullet line of guitars, which was rather short-lived. And then after Bullet came Squier, of course, but sadly, there weren't a lot of Mustangs for almost 20 years. The lineup, or maybe even more, the lineup laid pretty dormant, and only Fender Japan was making Mustangs in the 90s, and these weren't always available in the U.S. Now, a lot of notable players have picked up the Mustang, and it's become kind of one of those guitars, kind of like the Jazzmaster and the Jaguar, that a lot of alternative and grunge players picked them up because no one wanted them. Everyone wanted a Strat or a Tele. You know, no one really cared about these oddball guitars that Fender had made. They're like, ew, no, I don't want that. What? The pickups sound weak. You know, there's phase switching, like the vibrato system's odd. I don't understand it. And so a lot of people just didn't want them, and so they were cheap. And plus, there were more available in left-handed, and so that's why Kurt Cobain ended up with them, I'm pretty sure. So, yes, notable players. Kurt Cobain, obviously, probably the most famous user of the Mustang for a very long time. And I would say even still currently, he's probably the biggest name associated with the Mustang, right? He played a Mustang. He put a Seymour Duncan JB in the bridge or something, or maybe it was a DiMarzio Super Distortion. I can't remember, but there was a Fender signature that had a JB at least for him. And so he played it in Nirvana. He would play a Mustang, particularly towards the end of Nirvana's career, I think, as well. So he was a pretty high-profile user. Other people from kind of the alternative 90s scene, Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth, of course, was one of those people. David Byrne from the Talking Heads played one. Belinda Butcher from My Bloody Valentine played one. Bob Mothersbaugh from Devo played one. Let's see, there's a bunch of other people like Rory Gallagher. Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie played one, and he actually has the only signature Mustang right now, is his signature. John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Damon Albarn from Blur played one, Nora Jones has played one, and Matty Healy from the 1975 is a notable user, as well as Mac DeMarco of Mac DeMarco. So yeah, it's quite a list of players, and the Mustang has seen a resurgence in Fender's lineup, going from there being no Mustangs in Fender's USA and Mexican lineup in the year 2000, thanks to the Wayback Machine. As the 2000s advanced, right, and you know, even this is past the grunge kind of era, right, you know, people start to get nostalgic for stuff that was, you know, bygone, and so Fender starts making a 1969 replica Mustang, and I believe this was a Mexican-made one in around 2005. At least in 2005, it appears on their website. In 2010, the Fender Classic Series 65 Mustang appears, and I guess this replaced the 69 one. And this is made in the Mexico plant, and it had single coils with the old school switching and the old school vibrato system. Fender Japan had been making Mustangs for a long time, and that was really your only ticket to getting a Mustang from Fender that was new for quite some time until more recently. When we get to 2012, Fender finally brings back an affordable Mustang, and this is the Squier Vintage Modified Mustang, and this is one that I had. I found one in Guitar Center for $200. Can you believe that? Quite a deal. It had vintage-style appointments, you know, the white button clues on tuners. It had the Mustang vibrato system, Mustang bridge, the vintage phase reversal switching, and a 9.5 fingerboard radius for the modern player. It featured Duncan design pickups, which I don't know if anyone out there has said, you know, yeah, those Duncan design pickups, they beat any other pickup I ever replaced. I think most people who changed it were pretty happy to get them out. I compared it to my friend John Chafee's Offset Series Mustang, and the Offset Series Mustang sounded way better. It was way more clear, more articulate. This one was kind of muddy, the Duncan design pickups, just like the ones that were in my Jaguar and in my Jazzmaster, kind of muddy and mid-forward a bit. But, you know, it still gave you kind of the vibe, and at least it was something. So at least Fender decided to go in some direction. They had rosewood fingerboards until 2019, and then they switched to Indian Laurel, which is what I had on mine. It was definitely Indian Laurel. It's very, very heavily grooved like Laurel is. In 2013, we see a Kurt Cobain signature with an HS configuration, a Duncan JB in the bridge, and I guess some Mustang pickup in the neck, vintage style. This one had a tune-o-matic bridge. Okay, the Pawn Shop Mustang was introduced along with other things from the Pawn Shop series like the Excelsior amp and the Jaguario and many other fun stuff. And this one had 2 dual humbuckers that looked like wide-range humbuckers, and then and I believe the slider switches just split the pickups, and it had a 3-way toggle, I think, and it was hardtail as well. In 2015, Fender introduces the American Special Mustang, and this is the first American-made Mustang since 1982, at least from what I could find. I could be wrong, so correct me in the comments down below and tell me I'm an idiot if if you see fit, I guess. It had an adjustomatic bridge with a stop bar tailpiece, kind of like a Gibson. It's a really weird arrangement. I don't know what Fender's obsession is with copying Gibson, but they love to do it. And it had 2 humbuckers again. These were the atomic humbuckers, I believe. You could split them with pulling on the tone pot, and it had a 3-way toggle switch instead of the vintage switching. So this was kind of cool that Fender was actually making an American-made one. They also did an American Special Jazzmaster, I want to say, at this time. Or it was a Jaguar, I can't remember. But Fender was starting to experiment. They're starting to see, oh, right, everyone's playing these offset guitars, especially, you know, all these indie rock bands and alt rock bands. You know, we got to start selling these. We got to start making money. And then we also see a more affordable Mustang, which is the Fender Modern Player Mustang. And this one has 2 P90s. It has a pine body, which was interesting. It had a vintage vibrato and switching system, and it had rosewood or Pau Ferro. I think it was probably Pau Ferro fingerboard, and it was made in China. Now, I do happen to have a guitar from the Modern Player series. Hold on one sec. I have the Marauder from the first run of the Modern Player series, and I wish they did a second one from the second run. It does look cool with this black pickguard, which is non-stock, but yeah. The Modern Player series was really fun. They are made in China, as you might be able to see on the screen right now, hopefully. And they were basically like the same level as Squier Classic Vibe, so eventually Fender discontinued it because it was like, we're making people pay more for a name. I don't know. Maybe people figured that out and didn't like them, or maybe they just didn't sell well. But this was a cool Mustang if you wanted to get one with P90s and the vibrato. I think it's the only one that Fender ever made that's like this, with vintage switching, vintage vibrato, but with P90s. So if you want a rock machine that also has the out-of-phase stuff, that's probably your ticket right there. In around 2016, 2017, some of this stuff might get a little hazy, but Fender finally introduces a mainline, vintage series, like a modern interpretation of the Mustang that's made in the Mexico plant that's not a special run. And this is the Offset series. So they introduce a Mustang and a Duosonic in multiple configurations. So they release a SS Duosonic that has string through the body. Both had string through the body bridges with a 6-saddle. It's like a 6-saddle hardtail strap bridge and 3-way switches and volume and tone knobs. And the Duosonic look was styled more like the 50s one, where the controls were all mounted to the pickguard, and you could get SS with slanted neck and straight bridge pickup, or an HS one with a splittable bridge pickup. The Mustang got a P90 version and a dual slanted single coil version. So, and then the volume and tone were mounted on a chrome plates. And I'm really glad that these were introduced. My friend John Chafee has one of these guitars in white, and it's really awesome. They have maple or rosewood fingerboards. I think sometimes they had Pau Ferro, modern style tuners, 9.5-inch radius fingerboards, no slider switches, no phase switching. It's just real simple 3-way toggle, volume and tone, output jack. What more do you need? They're straight ahead rock machines, and they rule. They're so great. String through the body adds some nice sustain too, so they're kind of just like a short scale telly in a way. The Classic Vibe series they had Stratocasters and Telecasters and basses and stuff, but then in around, I think it was around 2017, 2018, they add a Jazzmaster, Jaguar, and Mustang to the lineup, and by 2019, Vintage Modified is fully discontinued. And this is great. These guitars get better pickups. They're Fender designed. They're made in the Squier factory or somewhere else, some pickup factory, who knows. And they have kind of some updates. The Jazzmaster and the Jaguar get Mustang-style saddles for better tuning stability. And just in general, the quality of things goes up. Full-size pots instead of the mini ones, different things like that. And these are still being made today, although Fender seems to say that they're out of stock on their website, which gives me cause to think that Fender and Squier might be up to something. I think they might be releasing a new version of Classic Vibe very soon, because Classic Vibe's been around for quite some time. So I'm quite excited. I think Classic Vibe is going to get another round, and we're going to see some cool stuff. But in around 2016, 2017, the Bullet Mustang is introduced at only $200. It's HH, it's hardtail, string to top loading bridge, volume and tone, 3-way toggle switch, super stripped back, maple with the Powfer or Laurel fingerboard. But this is cool because the Mustang, a budget guitar in Fender's lineup, is finally at the lowest price point of any non-mini Fender guitar, or technically Squier guitar, but FMIC, Fender Musical Instruments Company guitar. It's finally back to the bottom where it started. Not saying that's where the Mustang belonged. Get down there. You're a cheap guitar. We can't put you in American vintage. But yeah, it's finally accessible again to people who have a budget, who want or are just starting and they want to sound like Kurt Cobain. In around this time as well, the American Performer Mustang comes and replaces the American Special. So American Performer took over from American Special, just like American Professional took over from American Standard, and American Ultra took over from American Deluxe, whatever. The American Performer Mustang is the second USA-made Mustang since 1982, and it's currently the only American-made Mustang right now. And then when the Player Series was introduced in about 2018, it absorbed the Offset Series into it at some point somewhere after that. So all the Offset Series Duosonics and Mustangs just became Player Series, and then they eventually changed some of the colors to kind of match some of the other stuff in the Player Series. But they didn't really make any updates to them. They still have the same electronics and all of that other stuff. No spec change at all. And then in around 2018, Ventera replaces the Classic Player Series and adds the Mustang to the lineup. Now, we had a Classic Player Mustang for a while, but the Ventera goes a step further and makes it more vintage accurate. We get the old school slider switches, vintage 7¼ fingerboard radius, and we get the vintage vibrato and bridge system. And so it's a pretty vintage accurate Mustang, and that's been the best way to get a most vintage accurate Mustang with a Fender name, has been the Ventera series Mustangs. And then recently, last year, 2023, Ventera 2 replaces the Mustang in the Ventera 1 lineup with a competition Mustang, and this one, so it has a competition burgundy, which is like a blue-green to blue burst, and then a competition orange, which is kind of more orange juice color. I really like the competition orange. I think if I were to go out and buy a Mustang, I'd probably buy that one if I didn't have a budget. Since I have a budget, I'd get the Classic Vibe competition orange one. Then, also in 2023, the Sonic series replaces the Bullet series, and now instead of just having an HH Mustang, we now have an SS Mustang as well, which is pretty awesome. So now we have, at the bottom of the range, $200, you can get a Squier Sonic series Mustang that has 2 slanted single coil pickups. Now, you can't get one with a vibrato for that cheap, but if you step up to Classic Vibe, you can. So the current lineup has the Sonic series, like I said, hardtail, top-loading, 6-saddle bridge, 3-way toggle switch, maple or laurel fingerboard, depending on the color and the configuration. You have ceramic magnet pickups, either 2 single coils or 2 humbuckers. The other Squier Mustang is the Classic Vibe 60s Mustang, and this has the vintage vibrato and bridge, Alnico Fender-designed pickups, 3-position slider switches, just like the old ones, vintage clues on tuners. It also has the competition orange color available for like $50 more or something like that, which is quite a lot for some stripes. In the Fender lineup, we have a few Mustangs as well. We have, it looks like about 4 models, and there's kind of left-handed versions and some different colors and things like that. Kind of limited run finishes. And so we have the Player, which was formerly the Offset series. We have hardtail, stringed with the body, 6-saddle bridge, 3-way toggle switch, alder body, maple or laurel fingerboard, modern style tuners, and available with 2 slanted single coils or a P90 pickup, 2 P90 pickups. We have the Ventera 2, like I said, vintage vibrato and bridge, Fender design Alnico single coil pickups, the vintage 3-way slider switches, the vintage Clues-on tuners with white buttons, and rosewood fretboard comes back to the Vintera lineup, replacing the Pau Ferro from the previous iteration, which people did not like. And then we have the Ben Gibbard Signature Mustang, which has an ash body in natural finish. Very cool looking. It has a rotary pickup selector in place of the tone knob. No other pickup selecting devices like slider switches or toggles. Just the tone knob is now the pickup selector. And it has a volume knob, of course. Black plastics on the pickup, or the knobs, the pick guard, and the pickup covers. And yeah, it's a pretty cool guitar. It's made in Mexico, I believe. The American Performer, like I said, still has vintage vibrato and bridge, but instead of the slider switches, we get toggle switches. It has Alnico Yosemite series pickups, whatever that means. And it has these cool vintage gear tuners that they have the old school buttons and the old school like slotted thing instead of the hole that goes through the side, but with a modern mounting system, so you can easily swap them out to modern tuners. It has rosewood fingerboard as well. So there are some notable exceptions to the lineup, and let me talk about those, and then we'll get to the breakdown of Fender's lineup, and that's American Professional. So the Jazzmaster and the Jaguar have both had a time in American Professional. The Mustang still has not gotten there yet. This is a bit of a shame to me, but hey, I think in the next iteration it could happen. The Jaguar, unfortunately, got the boot from American Professional when the second generation dropped. The Jaguar was no more, and just the Jazzmaster got to soldier on. That's a bit of a shame, but I think a Mustang in this lineup could be pretty good. There's a lot of artists playing Mustangs, like The Beaches, I think is their name. I can't remember. Tons and tons of bands playing them. People love them because they're smaller. And if you're a smaller person like me, it's nice to play a guitar that's a little bit smaller so you don't feel like a wee mouse playing a giant, like when I play my Gretsch, I look like an ant on that thing. It's crazy. The 1975, of course, and, there's tons of other bands out there that I'm all blanking on who play a Mustang. One of the guys in Joywave who tours with Joywave was playing one. Oh, no, he's playing the Duosonic. My bad. Yeah, so I think it could happen. I think two single coils with a vibrato would be cool, but I think Fenders would probably go hardtail on this one, unfortunately. They just don't seem to like the Mustang vibrato system, which is a bit of a shame. American Vintage. This, I think, is most likely. Please, Fender. I'm not going to buy it, but a lot of other people would. We really want to see it as offset enthusiasts, and it would be so cool to have an American Vintage Mustang for the first time. But right now the lineup's just loaded with all the tellies. We have 1 billion tellies in the lineup, with all the wide range pickups coming back. So that's fair. I get it, but I guess the Starcaster might be up next. The American Ultra, I think, would be highly unlikely, but I think it'd be cool to see a dual humbucker version here with a vibrato and some cool splitting and phase stuff. That would be kind of fun, I think. For a new signature Mustang, I'm not saying Ben Gibbard is bad. I'm not hating on Death Cab for Cutie. He's great. They're great. It'd be cool to see a Matty Healy signature. I think out of all the artists who have played it, right, we've seen the Kurt Cobain one. Thurston Moore's had a lot of signature jazz masters. It'd be cool to see a Matty Healy signature, like all black Mustang would be cool, like the one that he used to play at the beginning. But he's playing a lot of Strats and ES330s and casinos these days, so I don't know if the Mustang is necessarily the most recognizable guitar for him. So now let's see how much of Fender's lineup does the Mustang comprise. We've obviously seen it increase since like 2000, where it was a very small percentage of the lineup, as in 0%, no percent of the lineup. So in Fender's lineup right now, excluding the left-handed versions of guitars, but including limited edition finishes, there are 76 Strats, 50 Telecasters, 13 Jazzmasters, 7 Jaguars, and 6 Mustangs. That has changed from my State of the Jaguar video, where there were only 5 Mustangs and 6 Jaguars. Some of these are the Vintera 1 models, which are exiting the lineup, but they're still on Fender's website, so I talked about it. There's 12 other models that include things like lead 2s and duosonics and miscellaneous things, Meteoras. So there's a total of 164 guitars in Fender's lineup. The Mustang comprises 3.66% of Fender's lineup. This is compared to the Jaguar, which is 4.27, the Jazzmaster is 7.93, the Telecaster at 30.5, and the Stratocaster at 46.34, and the others at 7.32. From Squier, there are 30 Strats, 21 Tellys, 9 Jazzmasters, 3 Jaguars, 7 Mustangs, and 11 others. So the Mustang comprises 8.6% of Squier's lineup, far more than it does of Fender's lineup because of the Sonic series. And so this is quite interesting, I think. There's way less Strats in the Squier lineup, 37% versus 46% in the Fender lineup, which is kind of cool. Yeah, down with the Strats, you know. Hate those things. There's 11% of Squier's lineup is Jazzmasters, which is pretty dang cool. And only 3.7 is Squier's. 13.6 is the others, so there's a lot of others in Squier's lineup. And then for an overall comprising all of FMIC, we have 106 Strats, 71 Tellys, 22 Jazzmasters, 10 Jaguars, 13 Mustangs, and 23 others, putting the Mustang at 5.3%, edging out the Jaguar, which is only at 4.1%. So that's kind of cool. The Mustang is surging in the lineup. It might take over it's kind of surpassing the Jaguar in terms of prominence in the lineup, which is rather interesting, I think. So what do you think is going to happen with the Mustang? Do you think we're going to see a Matty Healy signature? Do you think we're going to see more American Mustangs or maybe more Mexican-made Mustangs? What about the Player Series getting refreshed? Are we going to see a Mustang with a vibrato finally enter the Player Series? I really hope so, because the Player Series I feel like is very stripped down right now, and I want to see guitars, you know, the Mustang and the Jaguar and the Jazzmaster get more features. So yeah, I would be interested in getting a Mustang, probably Classic Vibe or the Ventera, if one were to come my way. Maybe once I finish this dang degree, then I might get one. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Do you think Fender is going to increase the Mustang in the lineup, or do you think it's going to decrease? Is this a fad, just, you know, for a short period of time? I think not. A lot of people really love different guitars. You know, the Strat and the Tele are really your granddad's guitar, your dad's guitar. And a lot of people love these kind of kookier guitars from Fender, and it's kind of its own subculture within Fender. So anyway, you've been wonderful. I've been Zach. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy. Bye-bye.